folks, Dave here at Thunder Mesa Studio and the Thundermaker Workshop, where this week I'm taking a short break from the railroad to make something special for someone very special. I have a 15-year-old son who is very much into science fiction, rockets, space exploration. So I was inspired this year to create a custom one-off model kit for him as a Christmas gift. The rocket design is one that's been bouncing around in the back of my head for years, and I really like the Jules Verne meets Buck Rogers styling. The challenge, of course, was in translating that idea into a one-off model kit that a young man with little model building experience could put together with relative ease. Oh, and by the way, don't worry about us spoiling the surprise. He doesn't watch my YouTube channel.
The first step was creating a set of drawings in Adobe Illustrator, laying out all of the separate parts and determining what materials they would be cut from on the laser. I decided to make most of the parts from 1/16 inch thick MDF, which seemed like a good choice for strength and rigidity. For a complete tutorial on my methods for creating laser cut parts, see my video on designing laser cut structures with Adobe Illustrator. And here, fresh out of the oven, the first test cut of the Copernicus rocket. This is the major parts. There's a couple other small assemblies I need to cut out of some different materials, but these are the major parts of the rocket, and this is out of some 1/16 MDF.
Got the main struts, got the decks, the deflector array, all the pieces for the motor, some bulkheads. These are some interior bulkheads that are going to go just slip in. These are out of some 32 thou laser board. And now I think the thing to do is try to put it all together and see if it comes out the way I wanted it to in my mind when I designed the parts. And take some copious notes so I can write some instructions for my son, so he can put his own together. And I think the place to start is with the engine. So I'm going to clean up all the rest of this stuff and just concentrate on the parts for the engine first. Now obviously this is very much a fantasy spaceship, but I wanted to make it look like there was some possibly mechanical things going on inside here. And I've marked all the parts, and I just love this. I use the NASA font to mark all the parts, make it a little bit easier to find things and put them together. So this is supposed to fit together. Creates a little sandwich like this. And these upright pieces of the reactor lock it all together. So let's see if it works in practice like it does in theory. Trickiest part, I think, is lining these up. Let's see. Start by putting... I need to make some notes here. Good thing I have the video. Start by putting the R1 through TR2. Then line this up. There we go. Then we put on TR3. Well, one thing I learned right away is that I did not allow enough room at the top of these pieces for them to all come together and then fit inside this containment ring. So that's one of the first changes I'm having to make. I'm trimming away about a 1/32 of an inch, 1/32 of an inch from the top of each one of these, and I will amend the laser file for the next cut on these. And another problem right away, these containment rings, there's absolutely no way they're going to fit on there. I mean, they fit in the computer, but they do not fit in real life. So I'm going to omit them for now and possibly omit them completely from the model, but unless I come up with a better idea. It just, that's just not possible with 8 pieces of 1/16 of an inch MDF meeting in the middle like that. That's not going to fit. All right, moving on. Now I'm starting on the main body of the rocket. These bulkhead supports and putting the decks in place. So I've got 4 of these to add, and they go up through the middle and then lock into these slots on each deck. Let's see how we did on that. Well, it has been a minute, and long story short, a lot of the things I was trying with that first run just weren't working. So I had to go back and rethink a lot of the parts, and this is par for the course in anything like this. Whether it be a production run of 100 or 500 things, or a one-off like this, the parts have got to work together and they've got to fit. And full disclosure, I am not an engineer, and I'm certainly not a rocket scientist, but I am a model maker and something of a problem solver. So let me tell you first what the problem was. The main problem was these bulkhead beams. I had originally cut them out of some 1/16 MDF, and that turned out to be the wrong material because I needed something a little thinner and more flexible. And when I tried to install the 1/16 MDF ones in with these deck rings, long story short, they failed. They broke. I broke a couple of them, and I figured if I'm breaking them, my son, who's 15, is definitely going to break them. So I need to rethink this. So my solution was to go back and recut them from some 32 thou laser board, which, as you can see, is much more flexible and a little bit thinner, about half the thickness. I also eased up the tolerances. The tolerances of these slot joinery was a little too tight. I mean, you can have one of two problems with this kind of joinery. It's either too loose or too tight. And so I had to ease up the tolerances on that a little bit to accommodate. So now I'm going to attempt to assemble this main superstructure again, and hopefully with a better result this time. I've also cut a couple of new containment rings for the reactor here, for the engine, out of the same material, this 32 thou laser board, and eased up the tolerances on all of those too by about 128th of an inch all the way around. And I think I can get this to lock together now. Let's try that out. Ah, good. All right. Now let's see if we can fit the second one on. Same way. There we go. Houston, we have containment. All right, now I can try and assemble the decks once again. Push that up through there. Oh, that's a much better. Yeah, you want a little bit of slop in that, because this is all going to need to flex. Okay, so that. And then deck 2. Line up the graphics so make it nice and pretty. And deck 1 on the top. As you know, I know this was going to be it's much more wobbly, but that's okay because these are actually what's going to hold everything rigid. So this just needs to hold these 3 decks together until I can get those on the outside. All right, now I can thread the opposite one up through here. You can see how extremely tight tolerances on this would make it very, very difficult to assemble. The way this is designed to go up through the middle of the decks like that. Thing is, things that work in a computer model don't always work in real life. You just have to build it. All right, get this third one in here. Some of you might be wondering why I didn't use something like, model airplane plywood, that birch plywood. It's very thin and flexible and strong. So it wins on those accounts. But there's a couple of reasons why I didn't want to use it for this. One is, well, it looks like wood. And, I didn't really want the structure to look like it was made of wood. I wanted to make it, if it's painted, or if my son wants to paint it or whatever, I want it to look like it's made of metal. So that I didn't want wood grain in the parts. Also, it tends to warp. The thin sheets of plywood, when you get down to 1/32 and 1/64 or smaller, they really tend to warp quite a bit. I'm cheating just a little bit. I'm putting some thick CA on these joints. I kind of wanted it to all go together without any glue, and it does. But, if we're going to make a permanent model out of it, you want to glue these joints at the end of the day. So, a little thick CA, just a bead of it on there on each of these, the bottom of these joints, really helps strengthen it and hold it together. Slip the last one in there. And we've got something that's starting to look like a rocket. Now, this whole thing fits down over the top of the engine like that. Those tabs should go into these slots. Go ahead and glue those up also. Now the part I've really been looking forward to, putting on these fins and struts, make it really look like a rocket. Again, you can see where some flexibility would be a handy thing to have to get this to all go together with a minimum of cussing. All these tabs and slots to line up. Trick is to work each one in just a little bit at a time. You don't want to do one all the way in and then have the other ones kind of hanging out there. Okay. Once again, we do the opposite side next. You don't want to go to the next one. You want to go across to spread out the tension on both sides. That needs to go into that slot. Just went right in. Sometimes it just goes right in. We'll take it. We'll take that too. Get the third one in there. Nice and tight. Good. Now, theoretically, the last one should be easy, right? Because everything is now held in the position it's supposed to be in. Now, let's see if that works in practice. So everything's got to be lined up just about perfectly. Got it. Now these deflector rings, at least that's what I'm calling them, should fit down over the top. Very similar to the containment rings on the motor. All the way down until these fit into the slots. Unfortunately, I made the tolerances a little bit looser on this, so that's a pretty good fit. Now I want to add something that looks like an antenna to the top of the rocket, and I've got a 3/32 of an inch diameter round. I'm going to cut a piece off that's about 2.5 inches long and add a little bit of a point to the end. I've just chucked one end up into my drill. I've got some this is 80 grit sandpaper, and I'm just going to taper the end. Looks pretty good. Just put a little CA on the end of this. Should fit right down in here. Well, one thing I found right away with these pieces of bulkhead detail is that they fit a lot better if I remove this top tab that's on there. I don't really need it to align them, so I'm going to go ahead and cut that piece off of all of these pieces, and then when I cut the parts for my son's version of the kit, that won't be included, and they'll fit much better. This is why we build a prototype. Is. Think that'll work as a prototype. Well, I made all of the adjustments I needed to make based on my notes from when I constructed the prototype, and now I've cut another set of parts. This is the final set. This is the set that is actually going to go into the kit, and right now I'm trying to figure out how everything is going to fit into this nice kit box, and along with the parts themselves, also going to have a few other things to help with construction. Got some 180 grit sandpaper block, a small bottle of Tight Bond wood glue, a brush to apply the glue, and a hobby knife. I don't really think he'll need the hobby knife, but better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. So now we've got to figure out how everything fits in the box. So I've bagged everything up in individual Ziploc bags according to the sub-assemblies. And inside the box I've got some white foam. Keep everything protected and from bouncing around until Christmas morning. Fortunately I don't have to ship this anywhere, but better safe than sorry. So that'll fit in there just like that. I believe the tools will go right on the top, and the instructions will go over here. However, I mean that works, but there's one thing I'm forgetting, and that is a base. I want to make a base for this so this can be displayed blasting off into the cosmos. Kind of like that. So that's the thing I need to figure out next, how to make a base for this. Now I mocked up a stand from some foam core, and I think I'm going to cut this from some clear acrylic. And this will slot down into probably a 8-inch diameter circle of 1/4 inch MDF. And then the rocket will fit right in the slot like so. That should make a pretty nice presentation, don't you think? It slots in right here, and then the rocket will slot in something like that. All right, all I think all that's left really is finish up the instructions and some graphics for the box. Alright, well, I've created a label for the box. I wanted to give it sort of a retro look from something you might see in a 1950s or 60s toy store or advertised on television. So now what I need to do is cut this out and adhere it to the box. And I'm going to use some 3M Super 77 spray adhesive. Unfortunately, I only printed one of these. So I hope I don't mess it up. I get one chance at it. Otherwise, I got to get a new box and print out a new label and try again. So I'm drawing a line on here to guide me. So I think it'll go okay. This reminds me of the old days of creating product comps for clients, where we'd make like a one-off of the product package so they could see what it would look like on the store shelves. Now I can do the final packaging. My foam in there. And let's see, the base goes next. These. Actually, I think this goes this way. Yeah, like that. So I figured out all the parts. Here are the instructions that I created. First of all, it's got a kind of a schematic drawing of the entire rocket, photo of it on the base. Open it up, it's got the step-by-step build instructions, just like if it was a mass-produced kit, all the way to the end. I've also thrown a few jokes in there too. The Copernicus 2 is equipped with a quantum matter fission reactor. Proceed with extreme caution. So there's a lot of little in-universe things like that to make it a little bit more fun. That goes right on top. I think we can close this up. And the last thing, I have a seal label, the maker's mark on there, to seal the end here. Well, all that's left now is to wrap it all up for Christmas morning. Thank you so much for coming along with me on this project. You know, as a maker, it's extremely gratifying to make something special for someone that you love. Please don't forget to like and subscribe here on YouTube. You can also follow Thunder Mesa Studio on Instagram at thunder.mesa, or check out the artwork, model kits, and projects over on the Thunder Mesa Studio website. That's thundermesa.studio. Until next time, keep moving forward, everybody. Adios for now.